looking back on all these years, you're on the other end of the open door that was set before you that I'm on the beginning end of. I'm standing here wondering when those doors will open, and I know that God is preparing me and bringing me to the point when I'll be able to walk through those doors and make that turn into this ministry that I'm wanting. You've been there. You've traveled the road. You've went the miles. You've seen God's miracles. You've seen Him working. You've seen all these things. Out of all that you've learned and all that you've experienced, what advice can you give me as a young preacher waiting on God, waiting to see those doors open? And when they do, when I start traveling these miles, when I've got to pack up, when I've got to say goodbye, when I've got to take those steps that are, sometimes scary, sometimes fearful, when you don't know, when there's not a paycheck every week, when you have to lean completely on Him, that perfect trust. What advice can you give me? Would you give me? What would you say to me?
It's strange, and I'm sure my wife's listening to this. This week, a missionary came by our house and sat right there and asked me almost identically the same question. I look back over the years as I see myself as a young preacher and see myself as now. I would not want to change the gospel in any way or change the preaching of the cross of Christ in any way.
Amen.
But there is something that I would want Ed Ballew to be different. If there was one ingredient that I wanted more of, that I did not have as much of when I was a young preacher, I had a lot of fire, and I'm not saying it was phony. I had a lot of zeal, and that was good. But if I had one thing that I wish I could go back and insert into my ministry, would be a double portion of compassion. If there's anything that I would want more compassion for souls. I was far too don't do this and don't do that and don't go here and don't go there and don't say this and don't say that. I wanted to make people live right. I wanted to say you don't do this, and I wanted to don't do that and don't go there. I was far too legalistic in my approach to the people of the world. If there's anything that I would want to change, oh, how deeply I'd want to change it. I want them to see more of the Lord Jesus Christ in me, in my walk, in my talk, in my attitude, in my thinking, in my hunger. I want them to see that He's more than just a preacher. He's a man that God has called and laid His hand on, and He wants to see people saved more than anything in the world. If we have reached the highest heights of our ambition to be what the world would call a great preacher, and have not had the hunger for souls, if I understand, if I know anything, the whole purpose, the whole reason for Jesus Christ to have come into this world was to save sinners. There was no other reason. There was no other purpose for Him to come. So any young preacher, any preacher, if he does not have that all-consuming desire to reach out and to tell people about Jesus, when he comes down to the end of the journey where I'm getting close to right now, then I feel with many tears that he'll look back and say, I missed it. I missed it. We don't need to step on sinners. We need to love sinners. We need to love them like we want to reach out to the most vile sinner and reach out with love. That's what if I could go back and erase a whole lot, I want to say, Ed Ballew, love sinners. Love them with all your heart. Reach out to them, touch them. The bad ones, the vile ones, those that have done so bad, I want to reach out. And then there's another group I'd want to reach out to. I'd want to reach out to them. If there was a ministry that I'd ask God to put me in today, it would be those that have started and fallen and went down. The Bible said, if there be one overtaken in a fall, you with your spirits will restore such a one in a spirit of meekness. I want that to be my ministry. I want to go to preachers that have fallen. I want to go to them. I had a preacher to get in my car one night. He was hiding behind the church at one house. And he said, "Preacher, can I talk to you a minute?" And he said, "I don't want nobody to get in my car. I see you get in the car. I need to get in the car with you because they'll think you, oh, you got no business running around a man like me." He was a real preacher one time. And he got in my car, and he sat down, and we started driving, and he picked up my Bible, and then he said, "Can I look at it?" And I turned the light on, and he said, "I used to preach from right here. I used to preach from here." He said, I'd give anything to preach again. But love the fallen. Love the fallen. Love them when nobody else don't love them. When they've done wrong and done so bad, Tracy, love them. Don't step on them. They don't need that. So if I give you any advice, compassion, ask God for more compassion, and love sinners. Thank you, Tracy.
You said that you wanted to leave behind a stack of old Bibles and a good attendance record and all those things. And that message, you'll never know what it did for me. And I prayed, God, let me leave behind a testimony, not a scar. I prayed that. And since I've done that, that has seemed to be one of the biggest struggles in my life. Since I prayed that prayer, God, let me leave that behind. There's days that it's hard to start wearing out that Bible.
Yeah.
There's days that the attendance records just don't matter today. I just don't, And I find the devil fighting me so hard with that stuff. That's wanting to leave that. I find me and my wife fighting more.
Yeah.
And I find myself getting frustrated with my son, and I find myself looking back in hindsight, and I see that. Did that happen to you? And if so, what was the thing? Maybe in God's Word or whatever, something that helped you in those times, that reminded you, that's not what I'm working for. That's not what I want to leave behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I guess that happens to every preacher. This is a time when the devil gets on your trail. He'll make every road bumpy for you. He'll make everything in your life, he'll make it as contrary to what God wants as he can. It's not going to be. There's an old song that says, I'm just got a little bit of it. Must I be carried through the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others sought to win the prize and sail through bloody seas? No, I must fight if I should win. Increase my courage, Lord. That song has been my help so many times, because I want it to be smooth.
Yeah.
I want it to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But the road sometimes has not always been enjoyable. It's not always been smooth sailing. It's just not. It's just the devil has. He brings temptations. He brings trials. He brings testings. He'll try you to drag you back. He'll do all of that. But that comes to every preacher, you included, me included. A lot of folks think when you get older the devil leave you alone. But I've not found that to be so. I've found that to be the contrary. And he's definitely not left me alone. There's some areas in my life that he can't be fruitful because age won't permit, but he won't leave you alone.
You're still working, whether you realize it or not. God is still using you. Yeah. Every day in my life when I listen to something or I'll think about something that you've said, he uses you in my life.
I'm glad.
So don't ever doubt that. One of the things that God, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, God, let me see revival. Bring it to me first and let me see what I've read about, the old stories, and hear old preachers talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. I believe that God gave me a taste of it when he worked at Way of the Cross. I believe God did something that week, not because of me. I messed it up, but he worked there, and it just made me more hungry for it.
Yeah.
And is there, you've probably seen, I guess, about everything there is to see, and you've seen God work in mighty ways. Was there a certain time that sticks out in your mind, just one particular time, where God moved in such a mighty way that it so impacted your life that you've never forgot it, and it just a certain time where it was a special moving unlike you've never seen before, one in particular?
Strange. Again, I was talking to a man on the phone while I go from Dayton, Tennessee. I remember a man, his name was C.L. Roach.
Oh, yeah.
One of the greatest,
one of
the dearest friends that I ever had in my life was C.L. Roach. And he and I were in a meeting back years ago that they would ask two preachers to come, and you'd preach one night, he'd preach the next night, you'd preach one night, he'd preach the next night, or maybe both of them preach the same night. And we were in a church in South Georgia, and the power of God so came into the place, so covered the place, so just absolutely took over the entire service, that it was one of those services I'll never forget. If I were to tell you what I preached on, what Brother C.L. preached on, well, I can't do that. I don't remember that. But I saw God so moved that people were down on the floor crawling like animals to get to the altar. And another night, I'll never forget, this was Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville, Tennessee. I remember so very well. I'd never been to this church. Never in all my life been there. I couldn't find it today if I had to. Don't know where it's at. I know it's in Knoxville. And I remember the preacher came and got me to the motel where I was at. And I told him, I said, you better, but I don't think I can find it. And he came to get me, and it was raining. Not real, just downpour, but I mean raining. Well, we got to the church, and I was so amazed at something I saw. The house was packed full. No one else could get in. And with the rain coming down, people were standing outside. The windows were open, standing outside with umbrellas over their heads. And that night, God was present again in such a mighty, mighty, mighty way. When the invitation was given, men started crawling in the windows. To crawl in the windows to get to the altar. They couldn't, fear they couldn't get in around the door. They crawled in the windows and came to the altar and got saved. I saw services like that. I'd like to say there's been multitude in number. Not near as many as I'd like to see. But I saw some that God was so real and so mighty. And I'll say this. I'd like to say I see it today, but it's been a long time since I've seen it.
My generation hasn't seen it.
No, I'm afraid you haven't. No, you haven't seen it. I saw those kind of services in many wonderful ways, but I don't see it much anymore. We've learned how. We've learned how to organize. We've learned how to conduct services. We've learned how to do this, learn how to do that, what button to push, what to do this and do that. But we won't let God take over no more. We've got to have everything on a time schedule. We've got to have everything on our way of thinking. But when we'll let God come back in, when we'll let God take over our services and our lives and our home, we can see that again. But now I want to say this. I fear there's a possibility you won't ever see it. We're close to the coming of the Lord. Thank the Lord for that. And I bless His name for that.
Amen.
But I fear you won't ever see that. In the swamps of Florida and Louisiana and all across the country, all across and around the world, I saw God do things. But, and I say this without trying to just be repetitious, we won't let God do it no more. We won't let God in no more. Now you'll hear of little spots where God done some things and where God was there. Mm-hmm. But just that take over and God do something, you won't hear that much anymore. I'd like to say you will, but you won't.
I know. I go to a lot of jails.
Yeah.
And you know about jails.
Yes, I do.
Let's see here. How do I say this? I love it. I enjoy it. The state prison I've been going to on Monday nights, that's probably the most fun preaching I've ever had, and I look so forward to it. Those guys are so hungry for it. Yeah. But the county jail, we deal with a lot of, and let me say this before I say what I'm about to say. I know that only the Holy Spirit can do the work.
Yes, sir.
Only He can break them. Only He can draw them. Unless He does, and there's nothing. Without conviction, there's no conversion. And you've dealt with your jailhouse religion. I know you've seen it. And you've
I know what you're
dealt
talking
with
about.
But at the county jail that we go to, we deal with a lot of complacency and a lot of just cold, callous, and a lot of the I came just to get out of my cell type stuff. Now, we're on a time limit. There's not much time that we can do, but with those certain people, I want to be able to reach them somehow. And it's like I said, unless He does the work, I know that. But is there a way that you found, I mean, I know you got to love them, and I always try to love them and hug their neck and thank them for coming. And but in your experience over the years with jails and stuff like that you saw, was there any particular thing that you found that helped you reach them on their level? Do you understand what I'm saying? They just kind of, you know.
Yeah, I do. They're looking for a judgmental approach from preachers. Don't ever talk down to them. Yeah. Don't ever leave an impression how mean and sorry and low down and unreachable they are. I come right back again. They know whether you love them or not. Yeah. They know whether they can pick you out so quick. Yeah. They'll spot you that quick by your walk, your attitude, your cockiness. Yeah. They'll pick you out at the bat of an eye. Mm. But I don't mean to walk in stoop shoulder. I mean walk in with, ask God to give you real humility. If a man thinks he's humble, he's not. Yeah. But ask God to give you that humility for souls. I want that to be real. If there's anything in my life, I want to be real. I want everybody to see I love sinners. I love sinners. Now, you said that a while ago about the number, the attendance, so on and so forth. Yeah. I know what preachers do. I know what pastors do, and I want the same thing. Yeah. But I want our churches to be filled with people that love sinners. Amen. I want them to know, the sinner knows that we love them. If they can pick me out saying he weeps over sinners, he put his arms around sinners, he loves sinners, he cares for sinners. If they can see that in me, yeah, I believe I've won the first fight. But if they see an attitude of righteous cockiness, so to speak, Look how good I am, and they'll pick it out.
Yeah.
Don't let them see that. I mean, if when you go in the pulpit, in the first few statements that you say, they'll look at your face, they'll see that. And this is my opinion.
Yeah.
And if I can go in that pulpit and they can see that I'm there for one purpose, to tell somebody about Jesus, that's all I'm concerned about.
Amen.
That's all I'm concerned about.
Amen.
And I believe they will. I believe they'll see that if it's there. I really believe that.
My dad made a statement that I can't remember everything that he said, but he was saying if you study the great men of God throughout history, you'll notice certain characteristics that run true for all of them. And the first one that he said was they realized that they were a complete and utter failure.
Oh, yes.
And they realized that they were nothing. And there was a time just a few months ago where God used somebody in my life, a preacher friend of mine got saved. And there was a lot of resentment there and just a long story, but he used that to get me sick of myself. And just showed me myself altogether ugly. And it was the beginning of something in my life that I'm not sure what it was, but it was a turning point, which my wife's not sure if it was good or not. The way I got down. I got low about myself. I realized just how disgusting I was, and she wasn't sure it was a good thing at first, but and I don't know how God's going to use it, but was there a certain thing in your life, a certain thing in your ministry, a certain turning point where God did something in you or used something to change you that ended up changing you and your ministry from that moment on? Was there a certain turning point there?
I can't think of any one specific thing that God may have used. I'm sure He used a lot of things.
Yeah.
At that time, I didn't maybe see it then, but as you said a while ago, you don't know how it's going to turn out, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I don't recall anything just definitely right now. I might have thought of that, but I'm sure there was things. He did change my life. He did turn me around in some areas. And you made a good statement there just a minute ago. If there's anything I think a preacher ought to see, is how nothing he is and how God's everything. I believe that. I really believe that.
How do you stay that way?
It's not easy because you can get puffed up on your own self. You have one great service and you say, boy, look what God done with me, what I done. Look what. It's not easy. Dying daily is a very painful thing, but it's just got to be done. He must increase, I must decrease. I've got to take this stand back, but let him be the head leader. That's not easy, Tracy. No, it's not easy. I wish I could give you a big textbook and say right here's something I wrote. Here's something I think will take you all the way. But I'll say this. If you will find yourself daily, I think in my heart, asking God to let you please Him. Please Him. Let me please you today. I'll bow in there in a little while before I go to bed tonight. And I'll ask God to forgive me of all my old dirty sins today. Wash all of them away. I confess them. I just say, Lord, I'm guilty. And I want you just to take it and forgive me of all my sins, everything I've done is wrong. And then I pray for you. Pray for preachers, pastors, missionaries, evangelists, all across the country. I want to lay my head on my pillow at night, aware of one thing. If I've done anything, it's been Him this day. Oh, don't let me get pumped up on myself. I want to go in the pulpit. Every time I go in the pulpit, I'll go in there tomorrow. Lord, if there's anything done, you'll have to do it. If I can do that, I feel like maybe I've made a pretty good step.
That's it.
But Lord, I'm going to get in the car in the morning, knowing if he don't preach, there won't be none done. And I may have the outline. I may have every little, everything that, every little note, every little footnote, and I may have scratched something down there, but if the power of the Holy Ghost don't get in it, God don't take over it, God don't arrest the hearts of those men and those women back there, it ain't worth a dime.
Let me ask you this. For the longest time, when I looked for the power of God in my preaching, I was looking for a feeling almost. And I went to Dad about it, almost complaining that I didn't feel like I was preaching with power. And he gave me something, an explanation that really kind of smacked me around, and it helped me. But how would you? And it's hard to even, because it's God's working. It's something that we can't explain. It's something that we can't understand. But in your experience, those moments where, how would you describe it? If I were to come to you and say, I don't feel like I'm preaching with power, I don't feel like I have power when I'm preaching, what would you say to me?
I've been there. I have been there. It's not, I was not hesitating to find something to say. I asked Dr. Bob Gray one time. I said, Brother Bob, did you ever strike out? And he said, Dad, I struck out so bad, I wanted to ask everybody to bow their head, close their eyes, and me slip out the door. You know when you're preaching with power and when you're not. And to ask me if I've struck out, oh, man, have I struck out. I mean, bad, big time. And like I said again, you know when the hand of the anointing of God's on you and when it's not. Those times when you have struck out, it'll make you pray more than you've ever prayed in your life. And it's a frightening thing when it happens. And I'd like to see folks swinging from the chandelier every time that I go in church and preach. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
There are times, and you'll have to ask some other preacher smarter than I am to figure all this out. I don't know. There are times when a quietness comes in. We have been so trained in our thinking that we think that goosebumps and God bumps are going to break out over us all the time. That's not so. He said, be still and know that I'm the Lord. Just be still and know that I'm the Lord. And that's about the best that I have. You know it. You know when you do and you know when you don't. And you're not going to do it every time.
No. How big of an influence or a help were your preacher friends? One of the things that I've got some of my dearest friends at church. One of them was dying to come up here with me tonight, but him and his wife went out of town. The guy that you met Sunday.
Yeah.
I wanted just a dear friend of mine, him and several of the other guys at the church, just two in particular that are very close to me. But one of the things that I want more is, growing up, Dad always had so many preacher friends, and they'd call and be an encouragement and this and that. They had so many, there's people always coming in and out and calling, and I wanted that. And I want that now, and I know that God brings people in your life, and I'm going to wait on that. And I know that, when I went to Alabama and I went to Kentucky, I thought, well, here's going to be some guys that I'm going to end up, having preacher friends. And it hadn't worked that way. Not that anything bad happened, but how big of an influence your good friends were they on you, and was it a help to you, and is that something that I should be looking for? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
My wife's going to recognize instantly when I start to say what I'm going to say right now. I know some preacher friends, and they are my friends, and I love them dearly. But when I get around them sometimes, when I leave them there, I'm more down than I was before I got there. And I'm sure they'd say the same thing about me when I go to them with a heavy load and a heavy heart. They wish somebody shot me maybe before I got there. But I want to tell you about a man that, and I've not met a whole bunch of these. I never have met a whole bunch of these. I remember one time when I first went to Jacksonville, Florida, they asked me to come and preach at a preacher's convention. Huge bunch of people. I was scared to death. But I remember so well, I met a gentleman there. He looked like Colonel Sanders, dressed in white. And I met him in the vestibule that morning when I got to that big church. And he shook his head. Here, you're from Tennessee. I said, that's right. Well, I said, I've been around there a little bit. That's about all he said. And I preached that morning, and nothing that I recall was the great movie, just a good service, Not because I was there, but it's God's there. Yeah. Well, the next Sunday morning, Pauline and I drove up to the church, and the first thing I saw was this old man, white hair. And I got out, and I said, I met you at the meeting. Oh, yeah. He said, my name's Phillips, H.L. Phillips. And I said, Brother Phillips, I'm glad you came over this morning. Well, I never noticed too much, but he had a little bitty thin Bible. I thought it was the New Testament. And he came in, sat down on the front pew, cried, wept his heart out. Wept his heart out. I mean, the whole service. And he got to where he come every Sunday, every service, he's there. I saw a man in town one day, and he said, I hear Dr. Phillips is coming to your church. I said, no, I ain't got no Dr. Phillips coming to my church. Yeah, he said, that's what I'm hearing. He said, he's coming to every service. No, I said, no. And then it began to dawn on me, Phillips, H.L. Phillips. He had just not told me about him being a doctor. I said, what's he a doctor of? He said he's a professor of theology. He said he's in Greek and Hebrew. I teach it. It dawned on me that little Bible was a Greek lexicon. He read out of a Greek lexicon. The next Sunday morning, I walked up, he's there, and I said, Dr. Phillips, I want to see you in my office. He just called me. When I said, Dr. Phillips, you went in. I'll try to make the story short as I can.
No, it's fine.
He said, I said, well, you've embarrassed me. You've really embarrassed me. And I never will forget, the old man walked around the corner of my little shabby desk, and he said, I brought up in the hills of North Carolina. I said, when I heard you preach, I'd asked God to let me see what I was brought up in one more time before I leave here. Well, I'll shorten the story. Dr. Phillips, I guess he would call me how many times on my day? Call 2 or 3 times a day. Call my house. And he'd go over with me. And I didn't know it then, but he was going over with me on the outline, on the message. And he was critiquing what I had said. He wasn't putting me down, but in a very intelligent way. He was teaching me on the telephone. He would do it. I would give anything in the world if I could have met 1,000 H.L. Phillipses in my life. He had wisdom.